record.
So if we start preaching at him, we can say we're preaching to the choir.
Hey, I like it.
Okay, welcome, guys. I think Robert will be joining us, but we'll start. It's 8 o'clock. Our time started. The kickoff topic is, what do you think, guys? Is so you come into the show. There's 9 people, and you're looking around. Where's the 10th guy? And the next room, right next to, there's 2 guys sitting there, and one is praying, and the second is praying, and they're doing their own meditation. And the one guy pops his head, "Hey, guys, we need one guy for minion." So I can say, "Listen, Ruben, you go because I'm too busy. I'm doing." And you can say, "Why should I go, Lev? It's very unpolite of you. You go." So which guy should go? Should they go? Should I not go? Should both of them go? If they go 2, it will be 11 people. So you don't really need to have 2 people. You only need 1. How should that situation be handled?
What's the halakha say? Halakha says you should probably join as a mitzvah, but they can't force you to.
Yeah, but what's they can force you. But if you, what would, I mean, if I would do if I'm studying Torah, but there's 9 guys in Shachrit, they're missing me. I don't know what halach is, to be honest with you, but I would think it's probably appropriate when we put down the Torah, join them, and then do a Torah later.
I think the mitzvah of praying in with the minyan over it supersedes it. It is more important, or I don't know what adjective to use, than it is for individual study. My idea, I would personally think that both should go. I don't think it. If there are 2 people there in the room, and there's only 9 people next door, I think that saying shacharit with a minyan is more important.
Very good. This is what I feel also on time, because I have a practical example. A couple of times it happened. I was sitting in a study group, and actually in a cafeteria, in a synagogue, adjacent room was cafeteria, also served as a study hall. And we're sitting there with maybe 6 or 7 of us, and Rabbi was teaching the class. And there was 2 minions. And the second minion comes in, and the guy says, "We need one guy to come join us." And Rabbi said, "No, we're studying Torah. We're studying." So Rabbi said, "Nobody wants." And I wanted to go, but but that's different. This is a group studying with Rabbi Torah, and not the same. That, like you said. So my feeling will be like you do. Now, it actually happened. The reason I asked this question, because it happened to me. I was in that room. There was another guy, and the guy was like praying and thinking, I'm meditating, and I was also doing something of my own. I didn't want to leave, so when the guy says, "Come here," I turned around and I see that the guy pointed to me. He said, "Okay, go ahead." And I said, I mean, and that's being a little bit me. I kind of got, "Why don't you go?" And I mean, the Yetzirah in me said, "You go." So he said, "Fine," and I said, "Fine." So I ended up going. We both went, but I had a feeling like I'm being taken advantage of. And I know it's a wrong feeling. I shouldn't feel that. But somehow I couldn't help it, saying, "Now, if he would just stop, he would just get up and go, I would go. I wouldn't have any thought." But because the way his body language, everything was like, "I have important communication with God right now. So Lev, you go." Like, my communication not that important. And that sort of like ticked me off a little bit. And I think it's a wrong feeling to be ticked off like that. It's like, but that's what went through my heart. And I don't know if you guys think I should just simply, if I had to go, just go. Don't ask any questions. Don't judge. Don't say why. Just go. But somehow I just couldn't do that for some reason.
Well, I think mitzvahs that are time constrained usually take precedence over mitzvahs that are not. could be wrong, but for instance, if you're studying Torah and it's time to make Havdalah, usually you stop the Torah study for Havdalah and then go back to the Torah.
But then why my rabbi didn't want to break his study group when they asked for another guy to join?
Is the Lubavitch rabbi?
No, just Mignagdim, regular Orthodox rabbi. Very Haredi guy, not the Meir Sharim guy, but Orthodox rabbi with a black hat and everything.
Well, I know that the Lubavitchers are more focused on taking care of mitzvahs that are time related or somebody is in need. I mean, it's a famous story that the Alter Rebbe was in shul and he heard about there was a young mother who just gave birth and it was cold. She didn't have anybody to help her. She didn't have enough food. And the Alter Rebbe broke off from Yom Kippur davening, went to her house, chopped wood, made a fire, heated up some soup for her. And then when he saw she was all set, he went back to finish Yom Kippur.
Wow, I like that. What do you think,
On the Vilna Gaon was the other extreme. He wouldn't break from anything to break from studying Torah. I mean, I heard a story that he, I think one year he only saw his daughter for like 20 minutes because it was too much of a waste of time for him from taking away from studying Torah.
I read the book on his
So,
biography. His sister came after not seeing him like 40 years, and he spent 15 minutes
yeah,
crying.
I think that was the story. Yeah, it was just he hadn't seen her in 20 years or 40 years or something. And yeah, he was extreme the other way, he was brilliant person from what I've heard about it. I don't think I would have liked him. But you can't argue with his brilliance. He was extremely anti-Lubavitch. He
Yes.
was one of the people put Alter Rebbe in Cherem. The Alter Rebbe actually once wanted to meet with him, and Vilna Gaon locked himself in the room. The story was, so the Alter Rebbe waited on the stairs till he would come out, and the Vilna Gaon climbed out a window so he wouldn't have to meet him. I mean, I personally can't understand a rabbi saying he won't break off Torah study if he's the only guy for a minyan. That to me is just,
Yeah, I feel the same
that's
way.
not a Lubavitch concept.
I just want to add something to this because I just came from the Arvit. Between Arvit, we had also every evening we have a shiur, and this rabbi was saying, you're probably also familiar with this very well story where, on Pesach, there was a soup, so it was a Chabad, and the Pesach and the soup was served, and another guy, the guy comes in. And I guess the guy's mother was there, and he's sitting on the table with all the Hasidim there, and he takes the matzah and cracks it up and drops it into the water. I don't remember if I got the story. I dropped in the water, and
that's called gebrucht.
Oh, you heard the story?
No, I just know gebrucht is when you break up matzah and put it in water.
Yeah.
Lubavitch is very machbid and not to use gebrucht until the 8th day of Pesach.
Yeah, and also I've been to Chabad dinners on this occasion a couple of times, and of course, you would sit with a matzah in a napkin, so it doesn't even get in touch with water. And you take a bite of it when it's time to bite, put it back into a napkin, close it, and chas v'chalila, so it will not get wet. But this guy just breaks it up. Oh, his mother brings the soup, and the guy takes things and he puts in the matzah, and he says, "Here, honey, have some soup. Have a little cold or something. Have some soup." So he takes the soup with the matzah and eats it. And all the Hasidim looking at the Rebbe, Rebbe, he is eating it. And they're looking at him and say, Rebbe, how can you do this? This is matzah in the soup. So he said to them, listen, guys, matzah in the soup is a minhag. And a kavod for your mother, it's from the Torah. So I'm gonna eat the soup because my mom
Yeah.
made the soup, and I'm gonna eat it. And I also like that
Yeah,
stuff too. I
it's
think I do that too.
well, yeah, I've talked to people about this whole Gebrux thing, I mean, you usually people are very strict about this. They keep the matzah in a plastic bag, and they very careful not to have crumbs and blah 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 blah. And I said, so where is this? They said, well, it's just a chumrah, just in case there's a little bit of dough in the matzah that didn't get baked properly. And if it comes to contact with water, theoretically it could become chametz, but the reality is it can't become chametz, but you know,
Just in case.
there's a there's a lot of stuff in halacha which I think is a bit over the edge and wacky, a lot of minhagim, but some people find them very deep and very important. And someone around those people has to be careful. I've just taken on the minhag not to eat gebrux, on Pesach, but it's completely, utterly not based on Torah B'Al Shabbal Peh or Torah B'Ksav. It's just a minhag, a chumrah, and it's something you can't argue with.
And actually, I have also been in a room, it was a rabbi, was a Chabad rabbi in Atlanta, that the same thing happened. The lady, Russian lady, actually was also invited, and she's sitting and crumbling her matzah into the soup. And I looked at my wife, and everyone looked around, but Rob didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. He was just, that's as pleasant and
No,
nice.
because it's a minhag, whereas to insult somebody or make them feel embarrassed
Yeah.
is absolutely usher, whereas this minhag is just mishagoyas or nuttiness or some profound personal thing that the rabbis took on, but it's definitely, it's minor compared to the essential thing.
That is wonderful.
So-
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Can we expand this to what shoe to put on first and what shoelace to tie first? Is this also just minhag or is there something more to it? Because ever since I learned that you have to put on your right shoe first, but to lace up the left shoe first, it makes me just end up feeling guilty that sometimes I forgot, or I've got this brace on my right foot, and it's just damn inconvenient to try and do the other shoe before, or do the other shoe first, and then have fiddle with my brace so I can walk out the door.
Well, I think if you're a medical thing, I would just take care of your brace first and forget the minhag. The minhag is the idea of the precedence to the right side. The right side is like in the Sephiristic world represents chesed, and
Kabbalistic.
the left side represents gevura, Kabbalistic. So we try to emphasize the right side and give preference to the right side. Put your right leg in the pants first. Put your right shoe on first.
And what happens if I'm left-handed and I'm backwards all over the place? I put my tefillin on my right arm, not my left.
Yeah, right.
What where does that equate? Where does it come in?
I heard a comment on this.
You have to discuss it with a competent rabbi.
Yeah.
I had this question. I had this question heard on Rabbi, and Rabbi said, everybody is right-handed, except your left hand is your right hand. Essentially, he says, if the person, the way I understood his comment, if you're left-handed, your left side is your preferential side.
And so I've got to put my left leg into the pants first?
He didn't say that, but
I don't know.
But I would.
The kid says you should use your right first.
Yeah, I'm left-handed, but I'm right-footed.
Then put
Except that I'm now paralyzed on my right foot and I can't kick anything.
Well, then do like Ruben said. Do just medically more easy, convenient for you.
I don't know. It just seems so convoluted, and all it ends up for me is I end up feeling guilty that I didn't do the right thing, and that's not healthy either.
We know
Yeah.
the guilty
Well,
thing you have to take
if you
out.
want to feel guilty, Judaism has more things to feel guilty about, I think, than any other religion that was ever created since the foundation of the universe.
I, well,
Yeah.
But
I tell you guys, I just changing my views because I'm, as you know, I'm recording. You probably didn't see them, but maybe occasionally just I record every morning now before the prayer, the Tanya. I went to Tanya one time with my wife a couple of years ago, and I record like 5-10 minutes something. And I now think when you read it a second time, it's a book, big book like this, Rabbi Miller, on essentially Sneur Zalman's Tanya, and it comes to me, it makes a lot of sense. And what he said basically, this is our evening of a lab work, not theory, but a lab work. We did already a couple of lab examples, and it is great. Practically, the three guys, three amigos, just solved the whole world of halacha. And basically, Tanya is saying, do not be that. Don't want. What Tanya is saying, interestingly, let me just do it in 2 minutes summarize. When we have issues, Tanya starts with issues. The issues could be either physical or religious. In other words, all the physical, material things, meaning that Tanya specifically said children, health, and finances. Those things, he says, you have to handle it without being aggravated. Just take it as it is, and because just accept the fact, something you don't like. The religious things, if you don't, let's say, moral things, if you did something wrong, or you can get, either you hurt somebody or you didn't come, you cannot get close to God. You pray every day and say, listen, no matter how much I pray, I still don't feel it. What's wrong with me? His Tanya said basically, don't worry about it. Don't be neurotic at all. And if somebody hurts you, let it go. But it doesn't mean you have to take an abuse. If somebody comes to your door and throws garbage on your door every morning, and you forgive him before going to bed, as you're supposed to, and the guy comes tomorrow morning, does it again. At some point, you have to tell him, stop doing it, or call police, or you leave. You can't just keep forgiving it. But then I was thinking, this is my question, guys. And of course, we talked to this before, and we all probably can relate to some extent. I say to myself, if this is my neighbor, that is, let's say my neighbor doesn't like it, not throwing garbage on my door, but he doesn't like it and he doesn't help me. I want to have a refrigerator help me to bring up to my apartment. He says, I don't care, go hire somebody, I don't care. And it bugs me, the guy's so completely insensitive. But he's my neighbor, he's not my relative. Okay, fine, he's not a good guy. When he 120 goes to paradise, he wouldn't get to paradise because God says, why didn't you help left? Not nice. So it's not my job to judge him. He's got his own judgment. I don't care. He's nobody to me. But what if it's my own son or my daughter or my brother? What if it's my son? So if my son does that, on one hand, I say, fine, I'm going to move next block and I'm not going to take this abuse. But on the other hand, it bugs me because it's not the ego. It's not because I don't like that I'm not treated right. But I'm disappointed that my own son, my own flesh and blood, doesn't have in him to have sensitivity to another human being. The question is, what should I do about it? And I think I actually discussed it. If I go and tell him, listen, it's very impolite. I'm your father. You do this. It's just wrong. What it usually happens, he will say, you know what? Close the door. Never call me again. I don't care. You have nothing but criticism. Get lost. So that criticism won't work. If I say it politely, well, let's just sit and talk. I would like to have you more often calling me. I like to do this. He'll also say, knock it off already. I'm busy. I have this. Stop your complaining. So if your approach is in a nasty way, criticizing, I don't think that's correct. You cannot do, and you make it worse. If he's insensitive, your son is insensitive because you didn't instill sensitivity in him, at this point, when he's 30, 40, 50 years old, you can't really change it. But you can try to still, he has his own kids. So you can try to do it more nicely, maybe let's go have a beer, let's sit down and talk about it, try to develop this relationship. But even then, you push too much, mentioning that I'm disappointed I don't get at least once a week the call for 2 minutes will be nice. He doesn't do it. Even if I say that, he also gets PO and say, well, you know what, stop your complaint. What do you do in that situation? You said, let it be, let it be. Ah, you're breathing heavily now, Jonathan. How do we do that? I feel it. I mean, I can't resolve it. It's in my, I don't, like specifically, like I send the video for my grandkids in America. A little funny video with little toys, blah, 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 blah. And he played this video to my granddaughter and grandson, and they loved it. And then he said they watched it 3 times. But he told this to me like 3 weeks later. And for 3 weeks, I didn't even get a call. I said, "What, do you like me to make a video?" I said, "Sure. Sure, make another video." I made another video, and I don't hear from him like for 1 month. And then, and whenever he calls, he will say, like nothing happened. Hey, yeah, we've been busy. I was traveling. We went skiing and this. And but did kids see the video? Well, no, I was kind of busy. Didn't have time. And I'm not saying anything. My inner self wants to say, listen, you didn't have 2 minutes. This is 2 minutes video, not 20. When you take them to the kindergarten, can you on the way just play this video on the way? And you don't have 2 minutes in 1 month? If I said it the way I just said it, he'll say, you know what, don't call me again. Just knock it off. Again, it's all about you. You have your ego. But if I say nicely, well, you know, I would like you to more often, you know, this is my grandchildren. I would like to see that. I like to know what they said. Even if I say in this nice voice, pleasant, I still will piss them off. So, and you end up doing nothing. But if I do nothing, I feel responsible that somehow, I mean, there's a story I mentioned to my wife in the Talmud, I forget, that the really mean king was a bad king. And when he died, his son tied him to the horse and dragged it to the street of Tzafat, I think somewhere in Israel. And people, when you first read, say, what disrespect the son did to the father. But the Kabbalah actually said it's not disrespect, because at least now he was humiliated. His punishment in the upper world would be less. So the son was doing the favor. It's difficult to understand how this disrespectful act can go. But my point is, somehow I feel that I have to do something to help him become more sensitive. And I know realistically, you know, let's say it's a 40-year-old son. It's time to make him sensitive when he was 4, not 40. But is it too late now? What do? Do nothing? Do I admit it? Do I accept it and say, well, they're just the kind of kids I got? Or how do you handle situations like that? You probably don't have this problem, guys, because you have a perfect family situation, everything under control. But there's some people like me who has this, who has some disappointments, and I don't know how to handle it. I'm afraid to mention something to him because I almost feel I have a choice. I have a connection, but I'm missing a lot of this connection. And if I push to more connection, I can lose it completely. So I'm thinking I either have some connection and not try to change him, or just say, okay, hang up the phone. I don't want to know. And then for 20 years, I wouldn't hear from them. This is almost the option I feel I have. How do you handle that?
You're not the only, of course, you're not the only one, Lev. Because I've got enough problems with in my own family, and boy, I have to remember sometimes on a minute to minute basis to bite my tongue and smile and remember that right now all I can do is love them. My that's all I can do. The time for reprimanding, as you say, is 40 years ago. And even then, you know, I really hope that my kids are going to be good people. And that's all I can hope for. The rest is up to them, not me. But it's really difficult. I don't envy you, and I identify with you.
Thank you.
It's part of being a parent. It's the pain of knowing that when they do that, or when their kids, when your son has that done to him by his kids, because they're too busy to see him, Then he'll feel what you're feeling now. Then he'll say, "Oh, I wish I'd had that 5 minutes to be able to." I don't know. That's his. There's
Did
no
you,
there's no comfort in that, but that's the way it is.
Lev, did you cultivate a relationship with them when they were younger?
We used to go downstairs play pool. We used to go and go. I went to the to Rochester, whatever, to the soccer game. I mean, we there were difficult situations in life. It wasn't perfect, but it's not like we grew up aloof. There was a connection, with closeness, and then as he matured, he became older. When he married, like then it's sort of like. And you know what? My good friend, we went to college together, and we talked to him. And he is really he always tells me how it is, and I like people like that because he just told me how it is, and he said, "Lev, how are you to your mother?" And he remembered my mother. He says, "It just comes back." And I remember I was exactly the same thing for my mother. I would call when I went to college, and even when I went to America, my mother still stayed in Russia. I would call her every Sunday for about 10 minutes. Hi, Mom. And she was in Beersheba. How are you doing? Oh, great. Okay, I'm good. How is this? Okay. Okay, well, listen, okay. Anything you need? I'm okay. I'm okay. All right. Okay, see you later. I'll call you next Sunday. Love you. Bye. I love you too. And only later I realized how much she missed me. She wanted to be with me. And I thought, well, what do you mean she wants me? I'm a grown up guy. I have my wife. I have my children. I have all this. She has everything. She has a Kupat Cholim. She has her sister lives here. She has some cousins over here. What's she complain? I completely missed the point. And only now, later, when I have this from my son, I understand the degree insensitivity that I did. And when I'm reading Tanya, Tanya tells you have to repent to the point. I'm really ashamed of that. I'm not really saying, well, I should have done better. I almost like shrivel from what's the English word? I almost like cringe from I would not want to be friends, or I would not really communicate with a person like me at that time. It's a horrible characteristics I did to my mother. Now, how specifically should I tell her to come to America, live with us? Should I come to Israel? Should I
What
do
you
this?
did, what else should you have done? You called her every week.
I called her every week, but I probably should.
What else?
Maybe she should just come to America and live with us, and then maybe we are together. Somehow, you're right. It's not very clear. You're right, Ruben. It's not that easy. Maybe it's nothing I can do, but it still bothers me because I now know that I thought I know. If someone told me you're not incest to my mother, I would say, are you crazy? I call her every week. What else do you want? I come to visit once a year. I spend a week in Israel for 2 weeks. I come to her apartment. I spend time with her. Goodbye, Mom. See you later. But I can see now that it's a wrong concept. The children and parents should not, first of all, should not be separated that far, especially when my mother passed away when she was 94. And she lived for many years by herself. And I think it's just in horror. Talmud says the parents should not, people should not live alone. And that you can't allow your parent who is a 90 to be in that situation. And I feel that I don't know what solution would have been. That I agree with you, but it does make me
I
feel
don't know the solution. Even look at the Chumash. The Chumash has some paradoxical things in it. Like Rivka tells Yaakov he has to run away to his uncle Lavan because his brother's going to kill him. So Kibbut Av V'Aim, he goes away, as she's told, gets stuck there because Lavan's a schnook, and finally comes back, I think it's 22 years later. And the Rebbeim say that, Yosef was taken away from him for 22 years. The 22 years he didn't show Kibbut Av V'Aim because he was away from his parents. Like, what do you mean Kibbut Av V'Aim? He was Kibbut Av. He did what his mother told him. He was in a situation, he did the best he could. And yet, for all that, it's still like not good enough,
So let's
if
agree.
you ask me, like, so
If
what
you
was
want
Yaakov supposed to do?
yeah, if you want
You
a religion of guilt, then choose Judaism. The point is that um, right in Breshit, it says that when a man finds a mate, he should leave his parents. He should create a new life with his spouse, with his children. Um, I had the same thing as you did, but the opposite, Lev. When we moved to Israel in 1995, my wife and I, very pregnant. Well, she was very pregnant, I wasn't. My dad died. Her dad died. Um, my wife's mother was very happy in Vancouver without the kids. My mother moved to Israel to a house 150 meters from us, and unfortunately, my wife and my mother didn't get along at all, and I really had to choose between the two of them. And even the rabbi said, Yonatan, just visit your mother every day or every week. Make appoint yourself a time, like for study, and go and see her, and and avoid the problems in your home by keeping the two separate. But yes, kibud av v'em, but also you have to have your own life. There has to be some separation.
Well, it's interesting because we have I had to I had a situation where, like you said, Jonathan, I will come home. My mother lived with us in America for about a year and a half until she said, I had enough of you, and she went to Israel. And the reason I had enough of you because my wife always had a very good treatment of my mother. But my mother would, I would come from work, I didn't know which one to kiss first, like you said. So I'll come in and we'll sit to have dinner. Of course, my mom sits there and we have dinner. So three of us sitting there. And my mother was in Russian. She spoke very good English. She taught English one time in Russia. And she in perfect English looking straight at me. My wife sits like that across the table, my mother to the right, and I'm sitting here, we're all eating. And my mother said to him in Russian, does your wife know that she should probably first give me the fork instead of just trying to go ahead and gobble all this food, Eve? And I'm sitting here, I don't have a right fork there. Do you think she should do that? And I said to her, that's typical me, nasty me. And I will say to her in English, if you talking with my wife's presence, talk in English. You can say whatever you want. Don't talk. Don't you think disrespectful? You telling them in Russian. And she said, well, if she wants to communicate with me, let her learn Russian. I say, Mom, are you crazy? You're sitting in America, and then I get so peeled, and I grab the spoon, grab the table, grab the spoon dish, and I'll throw the dish on the floor and get on the table and get out. And my wife would say to me, "Relax, relax, don't get so crazy. What's wrong with you? Just cool it." Now, in retrospect, it's very inappropriate for my mother to behave like that, but I didn't have to make a conflict with it. She's taking like this, I probably should smile. I'll say to my wife, my mom is just talking about that the soup is not over salted a little bit like that. I should just make a joke. I created the conflict, not her. Even though it wasn't inappropriate for her to do that, but I could handle it better. And that what also I'm ashamed of that behavior. I couldn't at the time. I thought that I had to protect my wife. That's wrong. Not every situation. And my wife said to me, I don't need to be protected. Let her say what she wants. That's her. It doesn't bother me. I know what she's saying. I know it is. That's okay. No. How? No, what do you mean? It's not right. You're my wife. This is your house, Mom. This is her house. You're welcome here, but it's her house first. And the conflict. And I realized I could have handled it a lot better without having a conflict. And I'm ashamed of this now.
Well, you're a hot-tempered, high-energy guy, and part of maturing is learning how to control your emotions, let your mind roll over your heart.
I'm still making my
But
way towards that.
Russians are, I told this Russian who makes this Danger liqueur, Rishnikov. You heard of him? Makes
Baryshnikov?
this liqueur that he lives in Beitar, I think. He's a chemist. I told him this story about there was this doctor when I was in 2 years in a residency program for pathology before I switched to family medicine. And one of the residents there, he committed suicide because it was a whole complicated story, but he had been a urologist and at this hospital, and some other urologist started sleeping with his wife, and she went off with him, and so he and the other guy got into a fist fight. The other guy was more popular with the staff there, so they blamed him and they kicked him off staff. He finally decided to quit urology and went to pathology, but he was like very depressive and scatterbrained. And after 2 years, he couldn't do the work, so they dismissed him from Northwestern. And he got really depressed. And I spent a day talking to him, but the next day he jumped off the roof of his building.
Oh, yeah.
So I told this to this Rishnikov. My Hebrew is not good enough, so Aaron Schaefer translated. At the end of it, Rishnikov laughed and he explained in Hebrew, translated back to me. He says, Russians wouldn't do that way. If a Russian wouldn't kill himself, he'd kill the lover and his wife.
You know,
No, it's just
That sounds right.
that's your Russian blood, you know.
but you know something, this is what's great about the Torah. If I heard that conversation that three of us are having right now, and periodically in our Perplexed we'll talk about it, it would have made me a much better person, much more kinder. I didn't have that input. I didn't know. Nobody explained me how to behave because I grew up also with no Torah, with no guidance. So I did what I thought right.
That is one good thing about the Torah. It gives you guidelines for many, many different situations. It gives you an outline. You know, look, we've had, like one rabbi explained, what did people with Einstein's brain do before there was physics? Before there was physics, the Einsteins studied Torah. You know, all the great sages were Einsteins, you know. So these guys, they distill the experience of thousands of years. Yeah. Some practical wisdom. But, of course, it's inevitable that they're going to come up with a lot of stuff. Some of it seems really relevant and critical, and some of it just seems goofy, like the Bronx, but if that's, you have to sort of, sift through it and focus on the essentials. But there's a lot of great wisdom. And look, my advice to you with your children would be just turn it over to Hashem, stop fretting about it. Just accept it is what it is. Ask, you can say in a prayer that you wish their kids get closer to you. Try to stay in touch with them. And God willing, the time comes around, it's the more you fuss over them, try to push them, the more you'll push them away. It's sometimes you have to just leave some space for somebody to have a relationship and have love. You push too hard, it like rebounds. And
I really appreciate the advice from it, and also Jonathan too. But now I'm glad, I feel better already, because this, just by telling you what I just said, I already feel better. I kind of like intuitively felt what you said, Robin, I should do, but it just bugged me that I have to tell them. And I think you're right. Sometimes you have to accept that's just what it is. Pray that they'll find a better side of the behavior, and go by example, and hope, pray that it will be okay. But my friend Victor, says, you know what? I bet your grandchildren, when in another 10, 15 years, when they will see that their parents are so insensitive, they'll get on a plane, come to Israel, make Aliyah, and then you'll be happy. And then they will be in the same position you are in right now.
I think we only about 30 seconds, but anyway.
All right, guys, for next Tuesday.
Feel better.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you. For next Tuesday, guys, whatever topic, if you like to discuss, if Jonathan will still be able to join it, unless your choir will be holding you.
I'm in the choir now.
You're in the choir now. All right, guys. Boy. Anyway, good talking to you, gentlemen. Have a great weekend, and Shabbat Shalom. Love you, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Okay.